Welcome to Detective's Crime Story. In today's episode, we delve into a chilling tale of desire and obsession that spiraled out of control, culminating in a gruesome murder. Set in the seemingly idyllic town of Maplewood, Colorado, in the summer of 2020, this is the case of two couples whose lives became tragically intertwined. This is the case of Daniel and Evelyn Foster and their friends, Jacob and Vanessa Harris. Daniel Foster, a 42-year-old successful software engineer, was known for his intellect and charismatic personality. His wife, Evelyn Foster, 38, was a well-regarded psychologist with a private practice in Maplewood. The Fosters were seen as the perfect couple, with their picturesque home and two children, Sarah and Michael, who were both in their teens. Their close friends, Jacob and Vanessa Harris, seemed equally perfect. Jacob, 45, owned a chain of local gyms, and Vanessa, 36, was a fitness instructor. The Harrises were often featured in local magazines for their healthy lifestyle and community involvement. Their children, Emma and Jack, were friends with the Fosters' kids, making the two families practically inseparable. The two couples often spent weekends together, hosting dinner parties, going on vacations, and attending social events. It was during one of these gatherings that a seemingly innocent conversation took a darker turn. Over a few too many glasses of wine, the topic of wife-swapping was jokingly suggested. At first, it was laughed off, but as the weeks passed, the idea began to fester in the minds of Daniel and Vanessa. Daniel and Vanessa started communicating privately, sharing fantasies and exploring their mutual attraction. What began as harmless flirtation quickly escalated into a secret affair. They justified their actions by convincing themselves that their spouses, Evelyn and Jacob, would never find out, and that no harm would come from indulging in their desires. For several months, Daniel and Vanessa managed to keep their affair hidden. They would meet in secluded locations, careful to cover their track. Despite their best efforts, their deceit could not remain concealed forever. Suspicion started to creep into their marriages, as both Evelyn and Jacob noticed changes in their spouse's behavior. In June 2020, Evelyn decided to investigate her suspicions. She hired a private investigator who quickly uncovered the affair between Daniel and Vanessa. Devastated by the betrayal, Evelyn confronted Daniel. Confrontation was explosive, leading to a heated argument that left their marriage hanging by a thread. Jacob, on the other hand, discovered the affair in a more unexpected manner. One evening, while using Vanessa's laptop, he stumbled upon incriminating messages between her and Daniel. The shock and betrayal he felt were overwhelming. Unlike Evelyn, Jacob did not confront Vanessa immediately. Instead, he stewed in his anger, plotting his next move. The discovery of the affair shattered the idyllic lives of both families. Evelyn and Daniel's relationship became strained to the breaking point, with Daniel moving out of their home temporarily. Vanessa, feeling cornered by her husband's silent rage, withdrew further into herself, her guilt and fear consuming her. Jacob's initial shock turned into a burning obsession for revenge. He began to stalk Daniel, tracking his every move and waiting for the right moment to exact his vengeance. His fixation on punishing Daniel grew, overshadowing all other aspects of his life. On a fateful evening in August 2020, Jacob's obsession reached its deadly climax. He followed Daniel to a remote cabin that Daniel had rented to find some solitude. Armed with a gun and blinded by rage, Jacob confronted Daniel. The confrontation quickly turned violent, with Jacob accusing Daniel of ruining his life and tearing his family apart. Despite Daniel's attempts to reason with him, Jacob's fury was unrelenting. In a moment of blind rage, Jacob pulled the trigger, shooting Daniel in the chest. The sound of the gunshot echoed through the forest, signaling the tragic end of Daniel's life. The aftermath of Daniel's murder was a whirlwind of chaos and grief. Evelyn, who had been hoping for a chance to rebuild her marriage, was devastated by the news. The loss of her husband under such violent circumstances left her emotionally shattered. The community of Maplewood, which had always admired the Fosters and Harrises, was left in shock and disbelief. Jacob was quickly apprehended by the police, unable to escape the consequences of his action. During his trial, it became evident that his obsessive need for revenge had clouded his judgment, leading him down a path of no return. He was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Vanessa, consumed by guilt and grief, struggled to cope with the reality of her lover's death and her husband's imprisonment. The affair that had once seemed like an exciting escape had led to unimaginable tragedy, leaving her to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. The tragic events in Maplewood serve as a stark reminder of the destructive power of unchecked desires and hidden obsessions. The seemingly perfect lives of the Fosters and Harrises were torn apart by secrets, lies, and ultimately, murderous obsession. The case underscores the importance of trust, communication, and honesty in relationships, as well as the dire consequences that can arise when these elements are compromised. As we reflect on this chilling tale, we are reminded of the complexity of human relationships and the dark corners of the human psyche. The case of Daniel, Evelyn, Jacob, and Vanessa will forever be etched in the high case of Maplewood, serving as a cautionary tale for those who dare to tread the dangerous path, deceit, and desire. Daniel and Evelyn Foster were high school sweethearts, their love case starting in the small town of Maplewood. Daniel's passion for technology led him to a lucrative career in software engineering, while Evelyn's empathetic nature and keen insight into human behavior drew her to psychology. Together, they seemed to have built the perfect life, their love serving as the cornerstone of their family. Daniel's charm and success made him a well-known figure in Maplewood. He was respected by his colleagues and adored by his family. Despite the pressures of his job, he always found time for his children, Sarah and Michael, often helping them with school projects and attending their soccer games. To the outside world, Daniel was the epitome of a devoted husband and father. Evelyn, on the other hand, was the emotional backbone of the family. Her private practice thrived, with many in Maplewood seeking her counsel. She was known for her ability to connect with people, offering comfort and guidance to those in need. Her professional success, however, did not overshadow her dedication to her family. Evelyn ensured that their home was a sanctuary, a place where love and understanding prevailed. Jacob and Vanessa Harris were the Fosters' closest friends. Their bond had formed years earlier when Jacob and Daniel met at a local business networking event. The Harrises shared many interests with the Fosters, from fitness and health to community involvement. Their children, Emma and Jack, grew up alongside Sarah and Michael, strengthening the ties between the two families. Jacob's chain of gyms made him a prominent figure in Maplewood. His passion for fitness was infectious, inspiring many in the community to lead healthier lives. Vanessa, as a fitness instructor, complemented Jacob's business, and together, they became local celebrities of sorts. Their picture-perfect family, often featured in local magazines, embodied the ideal of a balanced and fulfilling life. Despite their outward perfection, the Harrises harbored their own secrets. Vanessa's struggles with self-esteem and Jacob's controlling nature created an undercurrent of tension in their marriage. Vanessa's fitness regimen, while admired by many, was also a means to cope with her insecurities. Jacob's success, though impressive, masked his deep-seated need for control, a trait that would later fuel his obsessive quest for revenge. The idea of wife-swapping, initially introduced in a playful and light-hearted manner, became the catalyst for the unraveling of both marriages. What started as a joke quickly took root in the minds of Daniel and Vanessa, their attraction to each other intensifying with every secret message and stolen glance. For Daniel, the affair offered an escape from the mounting pressures of his professional and personal life. Vanessa, on the other hand, found in Daniel a sense of validation and excitement she felt was missing from her marriage. Their clandestine meetings, though fraught with risk, provided a temporary reprieve from their respective realities. As the affair continued, cracks in their marriages deepened. Evelyn, with her keen psychological insight, noticed the subtle changes in Daniel's behavior. His late nights at the office, hushed phone calls, and the emotional distance all pointed to one conclusion. Her decision to hire a private investigator stemmed from a need for clarity, even if it meant confirming her worst fear. Jacob's discovery of the affair was accidental, but no less devastating. The incriminating messages on Vanessa's laptop were a stark betrayal, shattering his carefully constructed world. His initial shock gave way to a seething rage, a desire for retribution that consumed him entirely. Evelyn's confrontation with Daniel was a turning point, in their marriage. The explosive argument that ensued laid bare the hurt and betrayal she felt. Daniel, though remorseful, was unable to provide the reassurances Evelyn needed. Their relationship, once a fortress of trust, now stood on the brink of collapse. Evelyn's pain and anger were palpable. She had built her life around Daniel, their shared dreams and aspirations now tainted by his infidelity. The betrayal cut deep, challenging her professional understanding of human behavior. The irony was not lost on her. The psychologist now found herself grappling with emotional turmoil she had helped others navigate. Daniel, too, was a man undone. His affair with Vanessa had been an escape, a way to reclaim a sense of excitement and freedom he felt had been lost. But the consequences of his actions were far graver than he had anticipated. His attempts to mend the rift with Evelyn were met with resistance, her wounds too fresh to heal quickly. Jacob's confrontation with Vanessa was markedly different. His discovery of the affair had unleashed a torrent of rage and betrayal. Unlike Evelyn, who sought answers and understanding, Jacob sought retribution. Vanessa, cornered by her husband's fury, could only plead for forgiveness. Jacob's anger was all-consuming. The betrayal had shattered his sense of control, a carefully curated image of his perfect life, now in ruins. His love for Vanessa was overshadowed by his need for vengeance. The affair was not just a personal betrayal. It was an affront to his pride and his identity. Vanessa's guilt was overwhelming. She had jeopardized her marriage and family for a fleeting affair. The validation and excitement she had sought with Daniel now seemed insignificant in the face of the devastation she had wrought. Her pleas for forgiveness were met with Jacob's cold silence, his obsession with revenge leaving no room for reconciliation. Jacob's obsession with punishing Daniel grew more intense with each passing day. He began to stalk Daniel, tracking his movements and studying his routines. His fixation on retribution consumed him, leaving little room for anything else. His business suffered, his relationships with his children strained, all secondary to his singular goal. The once vibrant and charismatic gym owner became a shadow of his former self. His obsession isolated him from his friends and community, his every waking moment consumed by thoughts of vengeance. Jacob's descent into madness was swift and terrifying, his need for control manifesting in increasingly dangerous ways. Daniel, unaware of the extent of Jacob's obsession, tried to find solace in his solitude. He rented a remote cabin, hoping to find some clarity and peace away from the chaos of his life. The cabin, nestled in the woods, seemed a world apart from the turmoil that had consumed him. But Jacob's obsession followed him there. On a fateful evening, Jacob confronted Daniel at the cabin. The isolation of the setting only amplified the intensity of their encounter. Jacob's accusations were filled with venom, his rage palpable. Daniel's attempts to reason with Jacob fell on deaf ears. Fury in Jacob's eyes was unrelenting, his need for revenge blinding him to all else. Confrontation escalated, their argument turning physical. In a moment of blind rage, Jacob pulled the trigger, ending Daniel's life in a flash of violence. The news of Daniel's murder sent shockwaves through Maplewood. The community, which had always viewed the Fosters and Harrises as pillars of stability, was rocked to its core. The veneer of perfection that both families had maintained was shattered, revealing the dark undercurrents that had been brewing beneath the surface. Evelyn's grief was profound. The loss of her husband, compounded by the manner of his death, left her reeling. The psychological toll was immense, challenging her ability to cope both personally and professionally. Her practice suffered as she struggled to navigate her own grief while helping her clients with theirs. The children of both families were deeply affected. Sarah and Michael Foster, already dealing with the fallout of their parents' strained relationship, now faced the loss of their father. Emma and Jack Harris grappled with the reality of their father's imprisonment and the role their mother had played in the events that led to Daniel's death. Vanessa, consumed by guilt and grief, retreated into herself. The affair, once a source of excitement, had led to unimaginable tragedy. Her role in the events that unfolded left her with a heavy burden of guilt, pleas for forgiveness unanswered. Jacob's trial was a spectacle. The once respected gym owner was now a man accused of murder. The evidence against him was overwhelming. His obsessive behavior and violent confrontation with Daniel painting a clear picture of his descent into madness. The trial was swift, and Jacob was convicted of second-degree murder, sentenced to life in prison. The community of Maplewood struggled to make sense of the tragedy. The families that had once been the epitome of perfection were now forever changed. The events served as a stark reminder of the fragility of human relationships and the destructive power of unchecked desires and hidden obsessions. The case of Daniel, Evelyn, Jacob, and Vanessa is a cautionary tale of the dangers of secrecy and obsession. It underscores the importance of trust, communication, and honesty in relationships. The seemingly perfect lives of the Fosters and Harrises were torn apart by secrets and lies, ultimately leading to a deadly obsession. The tragic events in Maplewood serve as a reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the dark corners of the human psyche. The case highlights the need for self-awareness and the dangers of allowing desires and obsessions to go unchecked. As we reflect on this chilling tale, we are reminded of the importance of seeking help and support when faced with challenges in our relationships. The case of the Fosters and Harrises serves as a stark reminder of the dire consequences that can arise when trust is broken and secrets are kept. Evelyn Foster's role as a psychologist added a unique layer to the unfolding tragedy. Her professional understanding of human behavior was both a strength and a source of inner conflict. As she navigated her husband's betrayal and the subsequent murder, she was forced to confront the limits of her own expertise. Evelyn's ability to read people and understand their motivations made her keenly aware of the subtle changes in Daniel's behavior. Her decision to hire a private investigator was driven by a need for clarity, a professional approach to a deeply personal problem. The confirmation of Daniel's affair was a blow that challenged her professional detachment. The emotional turmoil Evelyn experienced was compounded by the irony of her situation. As a psychologist, she was accustomed to helping others navigate their emotional struggles. Now, she found herself on the other side, grappling with her own grief and betrayal. The psychological impact was profound, forcing her to reevaluate her understanding of trust, loyalty, and forgiveness. Evelyn's struggle to reconcile her professional knowledge with her personal pain highlighted the complexities of human emotion. Her journey through grief and healing was marked by moments of introspection and self-doubt. The support of her children and the community became crucial as she navigated this difficult period. Jacob Harris's transformation from a respected community figure to a man consumed by obsession is a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked emotions. His initial shock and betrayal upon discovering the affair quickly morphed into a need for control and retribution. Jacob's controlling nature, which had previously been masked by his success and charisma, became more pronounced as his obsession grew. His fixation on punishing Daniel overshadowed all other aspects of his life, leading him down a path of isolation and madness. The psychological unraveling of Jacob Harris is a case study in the destructive power of obsession. His inability to cope with the betrayal led to a singular focus on revenge, a need to reassert control over his life. This descent into madness was marked by increasingly erratic behavior, culminating in the violent confrontation with Daniel. Jacob's actions were driven by a deep-seated need for control and validation. The affair had undermined his sense of self, challenging his identity and pride. His response was to seek retribution, an attempt to reclaim the power he felt had been taken from him. The tragic outcome serves as a reminder of the importance of addressing emotional trauma and seeking help when needed. Jacob's failure to cope with his emotions in a healthy way led to a devastating chain of events, forever altering the lives of everyone involved. Vanessa Harris's role in the affair and the subsequent tragedy is a complex web of emotion. Her initial attraction to Daniel was fueled by a need for validation and excitement, a desire to escape the confines of her controlled life. The affair, while thrilling, was fraught with risk and guilt. Vanessa's struggles with self-esteem and her need for validation made her susceptible to Daniel's attention. Clandestine meetings provided a temporary escape, but the consequences were far-reaching. Vanessa's guilt in the aftermath of Daniel's murder was overwhelming. She was forced to confront the reality of her actions and the devastating impact they had on her family. Her pleas for forgiveness were met with silence. Her relationship with Jacob irreparably damaged. The psychological toll on Vanessa was immense. Her role in the affair and the subsequent murder left her grappling with feelings of guilt, grief, and isolation. Validation she had sought through the affair now seemed insignificant in the face of the tragedy that had unfolded. Vanessa's journey through guilt and grief is a poignant reminder of the consequences of unchecked desires. Her case highlights the importance of self-awareness and the need for healthy coping mechanisms in navigating personal struggles. The tragic tale of Daniel, Evelyn, Jacob, and Vanessa serves as a powerful reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the dangers of secrecy and obsession. The seemingly perfect lives of these two families were torn apart by hidden desires and unchecked emotions, leading to a deadly and tragic conclusion. As we reflect on this case, we are reminded of the importance of trust, communication, and honesty in our relationships. The events in Maplewood serve as a cautionary tale, urging us to address our emotions and seek help when needed. The tragic outcome underscores the dire consequences that can arise when trust is broken and secrets are kept. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Detectives Crime Stories. We hope this deep dive into the psychological perspectives and personal struggles of those involved provided valuable insight. Stay tuned for more stories that uncover the darkest corners of the human psyche. If you have any thoughts about this case or have a case of your own you'd like us to investigate, leave us a comment. Stay safe, true crime case solvers.